Hi guys, so I just wanted to film a little video about my rejection from the Oxford Study Abroad program. So I basically applied to Sarah Lawrence for one reason, the flexibility of the curriculum, being able to not pigeonhole myself into a specific discipline. I am a queer and trans studies historian, anthropologist, and also a filmmaker. And I really wanted to combine those things together, so I picked a school that would allow me that freedom. I also really wanted to go to Oxford, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I could apply as a undergrad student just because the system in the UK is very different than the educational system in America, and I knew I didn't have a chance against these other people. So I also applied to Sarah Lawrence specifically because I wanted to study abroad at Oxford. It was a goal of mine since I was 18. I fell in love with Oxford because I fell in love with study tubers, specifically Ruby Granger and Unjaded Jade, and they are two young women who were applying to Oxford and in that process. And these two women loved learning, and I didn't meet them, but watching these two women who loved learning as much as me, I was like, I have to go to Oxford too. And I fell in love with the Oxford boy aesthetic. If I have pictures, I'll show you. I was wearing a lot of collared shirts with sweaters. I also have DID, so I have dissociative identity disorder, and my alter Jake, my protector alter, always wanted to be a doctor. He's very academically gifted and driven. He would score me 90s on my math tests. So I was like, Jake, I want to do this for us. I want to go to Oxford. And I was someone who loved literature. I loved writing. I loved reading. I loved talking about it. And I was like, I want to be an Oxford boy, and I want to show trans people that you can be smart and you can go into these spaces. Growing up as a trauma survivor, I was not focused on learning. I mean, I love learning, but I was focused on surviving. And when I finally moved to a stable house, housing, and I had food on the table, I was like, you know what? Let me try this. Let me try to throw myself into learning. And I'm also neurodivergent. I'm autistic, and it took me, I had to work twice as hard. But I had really good relationships with my teachers, and, I decided I wanted to apply to Sarah Lawrence. And when I was at Sarah Lawrence, I worked very hard. I rewrote all of my essays. I had so at Sarah Lawrence, we have conferences, which are one-on-one meetings with a professor, and you work on an independent project. So typically writing a 20-page paper or doing a project if you're in a film class. So I was often doing a film conference project, so making a film, writing a 20-page paper, and then having bi-weekly essays. And I was rewriting all of my bi-weekly essays for my literature class, and my professor gave me a B. I was heartbroken. I cried about it, because I would ask her, is there anything I can do to be better? And she assured me, no, you're doing great. And my academic advisor, had connections with Oxford. And I said from the beginning, I want to be prepared for Oxford, and I want to work towards that. And she did not give me an A. She gave me a B. And, I rewrote every single essay until it was the way that she wanted it to be, until it was, to her liking, until it was of good quality. And when I didn't get into Oxford, I was extremely heartbroken. I was like, I'm not smart. Everything I've worked for doesn't matter. I'm not smart. Because this channel originally started off as a study tube. I was making study videos. I've archived most of them. There are some on my channel still. And I think at Sarah Lawrence, I wanted to still post about studying, and people would come to me, upperclassmen would come to me and ask me for advice. And I just felt very nervous because people wanted pictures with me, people would come up to me, and I loved it. I loved that I made a difference. There were people telling me, I came to Sarah Lawrence because of you. And that was so nice to hear, that people liked me. But I struggled a lot. I was being bullied on campus. I had a lot of falling outs with certain people, and I'm not saying I'm perfect because I do regret some of my actions with those people and those connections, but not going to Oxford was I'm nothing. Like, I don't matter. I'm not smart. I'm an idiot. Imposter syndrome, like, all these things. And I thought, like, because I always said, like, a relationship is going to end and then you lose that person. But your education, you don't lose. Like, that's with you forever. And it's like, even though I didn't go to Oxford, I instead studied Jewish studies, and I really got to learn about my history. I learned about pogroms. I learned about, Jewish trans women. I learned about, like, Jewish horror, like we even talked about. And it's like, if I went to Oxford, I did want to study Jewish studies at Oxford. So, because Sarah Lawrence doesn't really have a lot of Jewish studies classes, and I wanted to specifically study, like, the connections between, like, queerness and Jewishness. And even though I did not go to Oxford, I was still able to do that project at Sarah Lawrence. I worked with my professor, and I read a lot of different memoirs, and I picked two, and I wrote about two Jewish trans women. So if you want to read the essay, let me know and I'll put it in the description box. But I thought, like, my life was over because I didn't get into Oxford. But it's like, okay, but I still got to, like, work on these projects. And I got to, like, take film history classes, and I took a lot of, like, Black studies classes, and I took, like, these classes that really made me, like, the person that I am today. And I think, like, the study abroad program at Oxford is very isolating because you are living in, like, a house with other Sarah Lawrence students, which I actually like that idea. But you're going and you're studying from, like, 7 a.m. to, like, 5 o'clock or more. And that's already what I did at Sarah Lawrence. I was always studying. So I feel like that's not really a deal breaker for me. But I do think that not going to Oxford, like, helped me really focus on, like, who I am and, like, what I want out of my education. And I think, like, now I got into NYU, and I think that's so amazing. And that's been a dream. That has been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. Like, I've always wanted to go to NYU. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for me, and I'm, like, really excited. I get my scholarship information next week, so fingers crossed, everyone pray for me. I think, even though Oxford, I lost it, I doesn't mean I can never have it again. Like, I could graduate from NYU and then maybe go to Oxford and study queer studies or Jewish studies or something. Because I really want to blend, like, the two, and at NYU I'm allowed to do that. Like, I applied to Gallatin, which is the individualized school. It's like a liberal arts school, and I specifically want to study transmasculine history, and I want to do that through a decolonial lens. So I have to, like, study Jewish studies and, like, Black studies and Asian studies and Indigenous studies and all these different disciplines to, like, decolonize the way that I think. And then I'm also documenting transmasculine history that is happening today, because I've already done the historical. And I do have those papers, and I do want to release that information. And I do have a second Instagram account, which I'll put down below, and I'll put it up here, where I will be posting my work on that account. But I do think that, as devastating as it was to lose Oxford, I got NYU. And I think NYU is a better fit because I'm going to be talking to people. I'm going to be in the city. I'm going to be surrounded by trans people. It's my home, like, that's where I found myself. And I think, like, Oxford might be for me in the future. And I think I could have a fruitful experience. Like, I know that there are transmasc people, in the UK. And, like, I am interested in transmasc identity and experiences in the UK, but I want to focus right now in New York. So I do think that everything worked out for a reason. But being a good student and a good boy, because I'm a little kinky, was tied to my education, was tied to being a straight A student. And I did graduate with straight A's, so yeah. I think sometimes, like, this is really important, and I want you to know that, like, you're more than your grades, because you could give it your all and you could still get a grade that you're not happy with, but that doesn't mean that you're unworthy. Like, I got a B in my medieval literature class, which I would not take it again, because I was really obsessed with medieval history growing up. Like, that was my special interest as an autistic boy. So that's why I took the class, but I would not take it again. But it's like, even though I got that B, like, I still got into NYU. So it's like, it's not gonna kill you to get like one B, you know? Like, the world will go on. And yes, it is devastating that I didn't get into Oxford, but it's like, I think that it worked out for the best, and I think that I'm gonna have a really good experience at NYU. And I think that Oxford is waiting for me, so to speak. Because it's like, why don't I deserve that? You know, like, trans people deserve to go to Oxford, trans people deserve to go to NYU, trans people deserve to be educated and have fruitful intellectual conversations and experiences. You know, like, my dad says that I went to a stupid school, that my education is stupid, but it's like, I am the boy that I am today because of Sarah Lawrence. And even if I don't make 100,000 a year or more, I love my education and I love my professors. And you know, even though I had a falling out with some people and it still hurts me to this day, I'm glad that I met them because they all changed my life. You know, like, I used to be a transmedicalist, and it's like, now I have this like decolonial view of gender and transness and queerness, and it wouldn't have been possible without those people and without my wonderful professors, you know? So, yeah, I just wanted to come on here and like talk about it, you know? Because like, I'm okay. And if you applied to a university or college and you didn't get in, know that you will be okay. And like, what's for us is going to stay, right? Like, you don't want to force a relationship because it's like, you want the person to want you and to want to be there. Same thing with the school. You want them to believe in you and believe in your vision. And Sarah Lawrence did that for me. And I am forever grateful. And I love Sarah Lawrence, you know, like, so yeah, with that, that's all I have. Thank you for listening. Thanks for letting me talk about this, because I've just been bottling it up, I guess. But thanks. See you guys in the next video. Bye, guys. And let me know if you want like specific videos, because I really like hanging out with you all and just connecting. So yeah, bye, guys.